Over the past 2 years, I've been building Star Wars in Minecraft, but if I want to recreate the entire galaxy and improve my upload schedule, I need to build faster. So I'm giving myself just 10 days to build the tropical planet of Scarif. Start Monday, finish next Wednesday. And the only assets I can use are my existing vehicle designs. Everything else will be new. I'll also be micro-vlogging the project. You'll see what I mean. There weren't tons of accurate references for the island layout online, so my first idea was to contact the actual Rogue One environment artists, but obviously they're professionals and don't have time for me. So my second idea was to find an... Wait, they replied? I'm keeping this guy anonymous because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I now own the actual Scarif film pre-renders. So then I converted my never-before-seen back-end movie asset into a schematic, and began tracing the outlines of Scarif's Citadel superstructure. However, upon revolving the base shape around the center point, I quickly noticed a massive problem. Oh my gosh, it's off. How is it so off? You see, during the process of color correcting and rotating my reference, I had committed an act of self-sabotage by making the image about 2 degrees off. So, after a quick sausage pasta bake break to review Rogue One, I fixed that up with Axiom, and slightly adjusted the Citadel base's outline to fit better as well. Then I added large circles to check what I'm calling the infrastructure, these rings and connections between the islands, and with those lined up, I had the confidence to go on. Continuing with my orange wall placeholder, I began outlining this infrastructure by carefully following the reference image. I should mention at this point that the base image is 2,000 by 2,500 blocks, making this my largest project by area to date. I have no idea why I decided it would be a good idea to time limit this. But to de-stress, here's Thread. He'll be popping up a few more times, don't worry. Now, everything that's not the sea will be land. Very smart. So I made every block that wasn't blue a red wall placeholder, before filling in those orange sections to block out the remaining shapes. Now you can kinda get a sense for the Imperial emblem shaped central structure, with these orange towers conveying where the Citadel will go. That's excellent progress for day 1. Early start, and I have to introduce this breakfast to everyone. We've got Greek yogurt, berries, honey, and protein granola. Highly recommended. Coming in with a fresh perspective, I realized that the Citadel was not deep enough to accommodate a spooky looking abyss, which meant I had to raise the entire project by 20 blocks. In the extra space, I added a fog effect, a trick of stacked glass layers with air gaps in between to gradually increase opacity. Of course, more depth would have been ideal, but every block I added down here was a block that I had to take away from the Citadel tower's height. The next few hours were spent shaping the seabed that linked up the islands, starting with running map-wide replace next to commands layer by layer. With each command slowing up the server for around 45 seconds at a time, my admin did passively threaten to kick me. JP, I am sorry. The problem with the replace next to commands is that they generate very unnatural looking terrain, especially on the diagrams. So my next job was to go over the entire map, adding noise and smoothing it in. To break up this relatively monotonous task, I fed off fluffy chickens. They provide us with eggs, which is very kind of them. Utilizing my omnidirectional gradient wheel, I cooked up a palette for the seafloor and applied it with a quick noise pattern, before adding some seagrass and mossy cobblestone to emulate rocky shoals. Then I hopped on Counter-Strike 2 with the boys, hit this one decent clip, and then we drew, making the whole ordeal a massive waste of time. Back in Minecraft, I filled in all the space between the islands with water, and began designating areas for the archipelago palm forests. With the water down and the islands blocked out, just 2 days in I already had the perfect groundwork for this project. Day 3. That's your cue. Day 3 was palm tree day, but first I had to prepare the islands, adding minor height variation and a rooted dirt transition towards the beaches. That transition was still quite harsh, so I covered the rooted dirt with short grass and ferns. Then I had a go at making a bunch of custom tropical plants, small designs that could fill in the gaps on the ground between my future trees. For these, I used a bunch of drip leaves, candles, and especially potted plants owing to their abundant options. All of these designs are survival friendly if you place them on moss blocks, so please feel free to steal them if you wish. Subsequently, I had my classic breakfast at 1 PM, and now it's the event you've been waiting for. It's palm tree time. It purportedly took me a pair of attempts to perfect the primary design for a player scale palm, but after polishing that prefabrication, I became a palm printing powerhouse. Some palms were small, some were tall, and some leaned a little to the left or the right, but that's all normal and natural. With all of this experience, I think it's only right to give you guys a quick tutorial for a basic palm tree. First, build up a 7 to 10 block trunk with spruce fences and mud brick walls, and crown it with a jungle wood block. Surround that with cocoa pods, then place mangrove roots above them, fill the gaps with spruce fences, and add the inverse on top. For the leaves, we're doing 4 sets of 4. 2 sets on the cardinals and 2 on the diagonals, from these specific starting blocks, with those in the same set sharing similar angles. The overall trick is to make the leaves appear as if they are affected by gravity, while making each one slightly different. Optionally, you can shade the leaves with respect to sunlight, and detail with a tall grass in the center plus scattered green candle triplets. From my 8 assets, I made a variant of each palm that was slightly taller, and then one that used copper grates and trapdoors for some interesting highlights. All of that work gave me 24 trees and countless smaller plants to decorate my islands, and you'll see my method for that very soon. You may or may not be interested to learn that I won my next CS game, with the boys. Let's go! Using this 3D model reference by Izan Tolai, I had a stab at the Citadel base's outer infrastructure, just outlining the rough shapes for now. To ensure symmetry, I built the more angled structures straight and then rotated them afterwards. But since the Citadel base had 6-sided symmetry, every angled structure needed 3 separate designs to align with our block games grid. Yeah, it sounds like a job for future me. Following the process that I was familiar with from my Endor Forest project, I used Axiom Stamp tool to create a preset containing all of my small plant and palm tree assets. This allowed me to fill all of the islands with my countless flora designs, using its magic space filling algorithm that I don't understand, pasting copies with random rotations and flips. To decorate the remaining space, I used noise patterns of, again, grass and ferns, as well as jungle leaves for more cohesive looking bushes. The result was that you can visit any of the islands and the vegetation looks completely natural. Great for immersion. I promised a return of thread, so here he is, chillin'. Back at the Citadel base, I started smoothing out the structures using walls and slabs, incredibly satisfying in time-lapse form. Then I employed this ultimate deep slate gradient to emphasize the shadows and highlights. This entire process was repeated for the central building, and then again for the other designs for the diagonal building. These ones are in the sky because, well, I planned ahead. Each upgraded design could be copied across to the other side, without bringing the surrounding terrain with it, before being lowered into place. Each of these structures took like an hour to spruce up, and I quickly realized that I couldn't afford to spend this much time on texturing. The time was always on my mind during this project, unhealthily so, and well, the time was always ticking down. Wake up and manifest a bright future. 12 X-Wing starfighters and 1 U-Wing somehow made it through Scarif's planetary shield game. I already had a design for the U-Wing, but not a Blue Squadron variant of the X-Wing. That, however, was a simple fix using some warp shaping blocks. If you would like to download my maps and expansive vehicle collection, you can find them on my Patreon. It's instant access to all of my worlds, including this one. You can paste in the schematics or use websites to observe them layer by layer. I'm a broken record at this point, but these videos would not exist without your support, so thank you. The base of the citadel needed another outer structure variation, the angled version of this middle building. But at this point, I was an expert at the process, so no big deal. With the outer structures finalized, all I had to do was copy them down into position and then fix any interactions with the terrain, which was mostly just lowering the walls into the water. For dinner, we went to this barbecue place, and if I have any viewers from the southern states, they're gonna be rightfully appalled. The churros were good though. Following the 3D model reference and scenes from the film, I added these supporting pillars to the central segment. To connect the outer structures to the centerpiece, I measured out and revolved a couple slopes. This revolve tool takes a profile and spins it around a central axis. So a rectangle makes a cylinder and a curve can make a dome. But it can be used on any selection like an arch or this use of 3-well. I realize I haven't done a lore drop yet, so Scarif was a remote tropical planet located in the Outer Rim, concealed not just from the galactic public, but even politicians in the Imperial Senate. Scarif housed the Imperial Center of Military Research, essentially a super-secret evil data center, which included plans for the Death Star. The rebels hoped to steal those plans. Nice. We're halfway to completion, and the details are starting to materialize. Here's another thread clip to celebrate. Apparently my friends in the US pronounce this Greek yogurt, not yogurt. Interesting. A perfect example for the revolve tool would be this profile that I made for the central platform, which then gets spun around the center point to produce these step cylinders. For the platform's arms, I used Axiom's modeling tool to create faces between these red wall blocks, before extending the bridge and adding detailed supports below. On top of the bridge, I designed this aerial looking thing that probably had an important job, but all I was thinking about was how hard it was going to be to build the same thing on a 60-degree angle. My concerns were interrupted by a 4-hour meeting for the upcoming bakery server collab. This was a 400-player event where we built these towers in just 3 days. Yes, 72 hours only, and I was very lucky to be a team captain. The server IP is play.bakery.builders if you'd like to check out the project. It also has plot worlds and all of the fancy tools in this video completely free to use. To connect the seas to the Citadel base, I started work on these waterfalls, inspired by this still from the movie. The blue glass is just a placeholder for the water to be added later. Those notches were slightly trickier to arrange on a 60-degree angle, but I fixed them up with some hand modifications. My headcanon for these pipes is that they pump up water from the abyss as a cooling loop for the evil data center. Their cylinders got pretty destroyed on the rotation, but that was another quick fix-up by hand. I'd say that I was rather successfully developing these sweeping blank spaces, but you can clearly see what needed to be built next, on a 60-degree angle. The following is a 2-hour time-lapse of smoothing the rotated base segment. At this angle, shape kinda lost all meaning, but I was trying my best. Fortunately, that dreaded aerial transformation was less scary than anticipated. With one angled segment polished, the rest could be copy-pasted around the center. Now that is an evil looking oh, hang on, missed a spot. Okay, now that is an evil looking complex. Still missing that monolithic citadel tower though. Did you guys know I stream on YouTube and Twitch? And TikTok. My objective for today's stream was to build the TIE Striker Starfighter and the TIE Reaper dropship. I'll let past me cover the process. Right guys, this is how I build vehicles. Okay, it is 17 meters long, so 11 meters wide, so 5 on each side, and apparently only 3 meters tall. See, this is the problem, right? Since I want the wings to have this outline, they're gonna look like terrible, because once you start to do like the line back, there's gonna be no blackstone at all. I could probably make a lip with signs, but they would be brown. Pale oak. It would look so much better if this was all blackstone and then this. That kind of works. If I just fix it up. Man, I love not giving up. Let's just try it. Okay, what do we think to this? It's not terrible. The problem is, it kind of needs to be there. Yeah, what if I did 4s? When are you going to build a 1-to-1 Star Destroyer? After Scarif. I'm a bit scared, you know? Okay, new ship. So it's 24 meters long, then it's 5 meters, so it goes up and down too. Okay. You know, I kind of preferred the signs when they're on, like, the bottom of the block. It just makes it look a bit cleaner. Brilliant. That's what I wanted to do. I'll build the wings flat and then we can angle them after. I can do this and then... Yeah, I should have seen that coming. I like the idea of buttons along here. Kind of like emulates that detail there. Do daylight detectors, but I don't know. Guys, how do we feel about daylight detectors instead of like slabs and stuff? Favorite video game other than Minecraft would be Counter-Strike 2 or Cyberpunk 2077. Oh, you know, it should have chains at the front. Oh, that's so cool. Then we can have a window slit there. Carpet on top of the glass and trapdoors on the sides. Whoa, that's so good. That is so good. Then I can slope it even more, right? Now the front looks kind of too small. Guys, I'm gonna cry. I'm going to cry. Okay. Okay. Mini wing established. That's actually good. That's like the one thing I've been able to do right. This is okay there. Okay. Thinking about texturing now. Maybe cobblestone on this top section? That's kind of crazy. Levers like this. That's actually kind of cool. What's your favorite block in Minecraft? Oh, I read it out. Polished andesite. I think the blackstone does look cleaner. I can try putting the signs back. Nah. Right. With all of these programs open, as well as 4 3D models, my computer ran out of memory. So, then I bought some more RAM. On the company card. Don't worry guys, it's a text deduction. I was already happy with the TIE Striker design, but I managed to improve the Reaper by using carpets in the cockpit floor to generate more interior space. Then I designed a variant with the entrance ramp deployed, which reveals suitable seating for a troop transport vehicle. Back at the Citadel base, I began outlining the central landing pad, still managing to keep to that 6-sided symmetry. Painfully. And that marked a week since the start of this project. All of this progress in just 7 days was honestly pretty mental. And next up, it's the main event. My video's ulterior motive is just to get one person to try this breakfast. Let me know if I've succeeded. In order to get a sense of the Citadel Tower's proportions, I decided to start with the dish at the very top, keeping its diameter accurate relative to the movie pre-render. Having the dish at an angle meant I could bring the antennae up to build height too. These strange lines that have been floating around for the past week are also measurements from the day 1 image, telling me where to build the tower's walls. For future reference, I'm calling this end section the Citadel's wing. While my measurements ensured that the proportions were accurate from above, the vertical and overall scales were, what we like to call in the business, completely whack. For example, the dish alignment terrace is this teensy tiny platform at the top of the tower. But for my build, I'll need it to occupy this larger space so that I can detail it properly. And detail really was the key word here, because I recall hyper-analyzing stills from the movie to get these shapes down, trying to recreate the mechanism that looks like it can pivot the dish. Below that, I implemented the terrace itself, designing its central data port, as well as the 2 catwalks suspended precariously over death drops. The copper trapdoors don't color match, but their semi-transparent texture makes them terrifying to walk over, which is definitely fitting. Next, I needed to bridge the massive gap between the dish and the base. With all the angled faces, this was quite the jigsaw to put together, but that was worth it, because when I stood back... Wait, no, hang on a second, it's a bit... wide. No, it's very wide. Maybe if I sleep on it, I'll like it. Yeah, I hate it. I removed the slope and started again, ending the new wall about 15 blocks forward. The change was admittedly subtle, but I don't hate my build anymore, which is great. On the tips of its wings, the Citadel had these huge communication beacons. I find this time-lapse quite amusing because I keep making them bigger and bigger. To be fair, they're significant to the tower's iconic design. 2 PM breakfast might be a personal record. Grian would be proud of the back of my tower. I just chucked in a massive revolve command and used Axiom's path tool to add structural supports. Come on, it's day 9 guys, day 9. I'm cutting corners and panicking. Okay, breathe in, touch grass, and we might as well feed the fluffy chickens while we're here. They're very hungry. At the base of the tower, I added the pad for Director Krennic's Delta-class. I do have an awesome player scale shuttle design, but despite this being my largest map ever, there was still a scale mismatch, so it unfortunately didn't fit. This window is for the Citadel's control station. You know, that scene where the director goes,
"Are we blind? Deploy the garrison! Move!"
Definitely one of my favorites, so I had to do the interior justice. The Citadel exterior looked incredibly bland, so that was my focus for the rest of the day. Below the pad, I added supports and entrances for troops and cargo, connecting the Citadel to the central platform. To emphasize the tower's shaping, I textured highlights and shadows, sticking to the reference as closely as I could. Towards the base, I added the huge vents and indents that break up the main facade, before littering the remaining space with panels and greebles. That transformation was honestly remarkable, and I was eager to move on to the interior, but the tatters of my sleep schedule did need protecting. Day 10 of 10. I required a monumental push to finish this project. And what's the best way to start your day? You guessed it, 20 chicken nuggets. For large projects like this, it's usually best to start with your corridor design, since it'll be modular and link the rooms together. This scene from the Citadel interior was actually filmed in a redecorated Canary Wharf tube station in London, which is awesome because some of the people watching this have definitely been there before, but never realized, including me before researching for this video. These very canonical water elevators linked that lobby area up to a grid of corridors connecting the Delta-class pad and the control station. From the outside, it looks rather strange, but within it's just the same modular corridor with some junctions. But I have to highlight this slanted sci-fi door design. Pretty wicked. This final elevator leads up to the vault entrance, the last layer of security for all of the Empire's secrets. While putting these rooms together, it was important to think about how the player could actually traverse them to climb the tower. That's why I broke the glass in the control room and made a parkour section around the data vault columns themselves. It also mirrors what we see in the movie, minus the ladders. Outside the Citadel, I removed the original glass fog effect to make sure that all of the extra structures extended down to the bottom of the map. Then I reinstated the glass fog, but changed the top layers to a noise pattern to give it a cloudier look, which was definitely an upgrade. And to spice up the waterfalls splashing down into the abyss, I detailed foam with glass, cobwebs, and light grey candles. A neat building trick is to use Minecraft biomes to change the colour of water. I put the warm ocean biome on a brush and painted it onto every shore, emphasising the shallower beaches and highlighting the shapes of the islands. The infrastructure markings were still flat, so I designed an aerial looking detail for all of these diamond shapes, before raising the rest of the surfaces up. With just a sliver of time left in the challenge, I used Archeon's wave function collapse algorithm to create a sort of pseudo-random rectangular noise pattern. Wait, Tom, you can't just drop a name like that and not explain it. Yeah, sorry Tom. Basically, the algorithm slices up your input into small tiles, and then rotates copies of them and attempts to fit them together in a larger output. Think about how you would choose certain numbers to fill in your Sudoku board based on the surrounding tiles. It's the same logic. Kind of. I wanted to have a stab at this scene from the movie, importing my existing U-Wing and AT-ACT designs. However, the walkers needed some quick modifications, including an open variant, angling their heads downwards, and staggering their legs to create a more dynamic pose. Then, dropping them into the terrain, I waterlogged their feet and terraformed the seabed to make it look like they had been there the whole time. Of course, this project wouldn't be complete without the Zeta-class heavy cargo shuttle, the ship that actually brought the rebels to Scarif in the first place, so I pulled in that design next. With 30 minutes to go, I created a new variant of the ship with its wings in flight position. And with just 5 minutes to go, I scattered around the TIEs and X-Wings to set up multiple aerial dogfights. The vault parkour connects to the Citadel roof, and a final short climb brings you to the ultimate viewing platform. Would you look at that? Just be sure, while taking in the view, that you don't slip. I think integrity is important, especially on this platform, so here's a clip from a stream on Sunday the 7th, the day before I started the project. Just an image on the ground. And then here's a recording from the 18th, just ticked past midnight from the 17th of those final editions. Basically, I have too much free time. Let me know in the comments what else you want me to add to this project, like more interior or a space battle, and I might upgrade this environment on stream in the future. Because is it perfect? Not at all. This centerpiece is the child of brutalism and the polished deep sleep block. But did I build it up from an image to an explorable 3D world in just 10 days? Yeah, I actually did do that, and you know what? I'm proud. Thanks for watching.